Welcome to Motivational Humanity. You are not alone.
Let's be honest, what truly attracts a woman who's lived, loved, and learned, it's not your age. It's not your looks, it's your energy, your emotional depth, your ability to see her not as a fantasy, but as a human being who has built walls and earned wisdom. The truth. You don't need to seduce her. You need to meet her where she is, with presence, respect, and authenticity. Years ago, I met a woman at a leadership retreat. She was older than most people in the group, poised, confident with that quiet power that comes from living through storms. One evening, during dinner, a younger participant nervously tried to impress her. He talked about his goals, his achievements, his car, his gym routine. She smiled politely, but her eyes drifted away. Later that night, another man approached her. He didn't talk about himself. He asked about her story, about what made her laugh, about what she'd learned about love and loss. He listened like her words mattered. And for the first time, she leaned in. That's when it hit me. Connection has nothing to do with age. It has everything to do with emotional intelligence. Confidence. Real confidence. It's not loud. It's not the guy walking into the room making sure everyone sees him. It's not flexing, performing, or proving. True confidence is something quieter. It's the way someone carries themselves when they've made peace with who they are. Flaws, fears, and all. When it comes to connecting with an older woman, that kind of grounded confidence is magnetic. Because she's already lived through the noise. She's met men who performed confidence like a play, charming, polished, and hollow. And she's learned that what matters isn't how loudly someone declares their worth, but how gently they hold it. Confidence without ego is a rare thing. It says, I don't need to dominate the space. I belong here simply because I am me. It's that energy of ease, the ability to be present without trying to impress. The kind of man who doesn't need validation is the one who naturally earns respect. You see, ego is fragile. It's loud because it's afraid. It's desperate to be seen because it hasn't yet learned how to see itself. But confidence, real confidence, is rooted in self-awareness. It's built through failure, through mistakes, through the moments when life humbled you. And that humility, it softens you. It teaches you to lead with grace instead of performance. Older women recognize that energy instantly, because they've lived enough life to know what real strength looks like. And it's not the man who needs to win every conversation. It's the man who can listen without feeling small. The man who can admit he's wrong. The man who can say, I don't know, without shame. Confidence without ego feels safe. It's the kind of energy that says, you can be fully yourself with me because I'm fully myself too. That's what allows connection to happen, because no one can open up in the presence of arrogance. But when a woman senses that your confidence comes from wholeness, not pride, she relaxes. She lets her guard down. She starts to trust. And here's something we often overlook: real confidence isn't about thinking you're better than anyone. It's about knowing you're enough. Enough to be kind without fear of being walked over. Enough to be honest even if it risks rejection. Enough to stay grounded when someone else shines. That's what draws her in. Not your youth, not your charm, but your presence. Because when you no longer need to perform, your authenticity becomes the most attractive thing about you. So, if you want to connect with an older woman, or anyone who's lived deeply, start here. Learn to be comfortable with yourself. Practice humility. Take ownership of your story, your scars, your insecurities. The goal isn't to be perfect. It's to be real. Confidence without ego is quiet power. It doesn't need to shout. It simply shows up steady, kind, and unshakably human. And that kind of confidence, it doesn't seduce. It invites. She's lived. She's lost. She's rebuilt. And somewhere along that journey, she learned that being truly seen is one of the rarest experiences in the world. When you meet a woman who carries years of wisdom in her eyes, what she craves is not flattery. It's understanding. She's not waiting for someone to tell her she's beautiful. She's waiting for someone to notice the depth behind that beauty. Someone who cares enough to ask, what made you who you are? And then actually listens to the answer. Respecting her story means slowing down. It means setting aside your assumptions, your agenda, and your need to impress, and instead stepping into her world with curiosity and reverence. Because every scar she carries tells a story of survival. Every wrinkle is a map of laughter and heartbreak. Every choice, even the ones she regrets, was made in the name of becoming who she is today. And here's the truth. Older women don't want to be placed on a pedestal. They've been idealized, objectified, underestimated, and misunderstood enough to know how empty that feels. They don't want fantasy. They want recognition. They want a connection that honors their truth, not one that hides behind illusion. When you respect her story, you treat her not as someone to be won, but as someone to be understood. You ask about the moments that shaped her, not because you're trying to score points, but because you're genuinely curious about her inner landscape. You listen not to reply, but to learn. And that's what makes all the difference. Because women who've lived through enough pain can sense the difference between attention and intention. Attention flatters the surface. Intention reaches the soul. When she tells you about her past, she's not asking for your approval. She's testing your capacity for empathy. She wants to know if you can hold her story without judgment, if you can see her not as fragile or broken, but as whole, strong, and still evolving. Respecting her story also means respecting her boundaries. There will be chapters she's not ready to share yet, moments that still sting, and memories she protects fiercely. Don't pry. Don't push. Give her space. Trust that the more you show respect for what she withholds, the more she'll trust you with what she reveals. And here's the beautiful paradox. The more you respect her independence, the closer she'll feel to you. Because what older women fear most isn't loneliness, it's losing themselves again. They've worked too hard to reclaim their identity to ever surrender it for approval or attention. When you show that you see her not as someone who needs you, but as someone you admire, her guard drops and real intimacy begins. Respect is not about politeness, it's about reverence. It's about saying, I see you, all of you, and I'm grateful for the chance to know your story. That level of presence transforms connection into something sacred. Because at the end of the day, love isn't built on chemistry, it's built on understanding. And when you treat a woman's history as something precious, she'll feel something she hasn't felt in a long time: safe. And safety is the most powerful form of attraction there is. Vulnerability is a strange word. For many people, it sounds like weakness, exposure, or loss of control. But for those who have lived long enough, especially for women who've weathered heartbreak, disappointment, and betrayal, vulnerability is no longer something to fear. It's the language of truth. And truth is the foundation of trust. When you're with an older woman, she's not looking for perfection, she's looking for realness. She's lived long enough to know that everyone has scars, and that pretending not to only makes you harder to reach. What she wants isn't a man who hides behind confidence, humor, or charm, but someone who's unafraid to take off the mask and say, "This is who I am, Bime." There's something deeply magnetic about a man who's honest about his fears, his past, and his doubts, not in a way that dumps his pain on someone else, but in a way that says, I trust you enough to show up as my whole self. Because vulnerability is not about oversharing, it's about allowing yourself to be seen without the armor. And make no mistake, older women recognize armor instantly. They can sense when you're performing strength instead of living it. They can feel when your words come from insecurity rather than authenticity. They don't need a flawless man, they need a truthful one. Because the truth is what creates safety. Think about it, vulnerability invites vulnerability. When you share something real, when you admit that you're afraid of failing, or that you've made mistakes, or that you're still figuring things out, it opens the door for her to breathe a little deeper, to trust that she doesn't have to be perfect either. That moment of shared humanity becomes the heartbeat of connection. But here's the hard part: vulnerability takes courage. It requires letting go of control. It means risking rejection. It means accepting that you might be misunderstood or even hurt. And that's terrifying. But that's also what makes it powerful. Because when you're willing to be seen as you truly are, you're showing that your sense of worth isn't dependent on approval. You're saying, I'm enough, even if you walk away. Older women respect that kind of bravery. They've been through enough relationships to know that emotional honesty is a far greater sign of strength than any act of dominance or control. When you open up, when you share what moves you, what scares you, what you hope for, you become more than just another man trying to impress. You become someone real, and realness is irresistible. It's the moment you stop chasing validation and start building connection. It's when you replace pretending with presence. It's when you move from trying to impress to trying to understand. Vulnerability turns attraction into intimacy. It transforms a spark into something sustainable, something that feeds both people's souls instead of their egos. Because at the end of the day, every woman, no matter her age, wants to feel safe enough to be herself. And that safety begins with you. When you model openness, when you show her it's okay to be imperfect, you create a space where love can actually breathe. So if you want to reach her heart, stop trying to impress her. Show her who you are underneath the layers. The man who can say, "I don't have it all figured out, but I'm here and I care," is far more powerful than the one who hides behind certainty. Vulnerability isn't weakness. It's emotional strength in its purest form. It's saying, "I choose to be seen, even if it scares me." And that kind of courage doesn't just attract her. It earns her respect, her trust, and something much deeper than attention connection. Emotional attunement is the quiet art of paying attention, not just to words, but to what lives beneath them. It's what happens when you stop listening with the intent to respond and start listening with the intent to feel. It's the difference between hearing someone's story and entering it. And when it comes to connecting with an older woman, this skill isn't just important, it's everything. She's lived through seasons where people listened halfway, where her emotions were too much, where her silence was misunderstood as indifference. She's learned to protect her inner world, to share carefully, to measure who deserves access to her truth. So when you show up with emotional presence, when you meet her not with quick fixes but with quiet understanding, she feels something she may not have felt in years. Seen. Attunement is about noticing. It's noticing the subtle shift in her tone when she talks about her past. It's catching the flicker in her eyes when she remembers something painful. It's feeling the energy of a pause and choosing not to fill it with noise. It's saying through your stillness, "I'm here, and I'm listening." There's a kind of intimacy that can't be built with words. It's built with awareness. When you're emotionally attuned, you begin to sense what she's not saying. You notice the little things. The way she inhales before admitting something hard. The way she laughs a little too quickly to hide sadness. The way she changes the subject when something touches a nerve. These are the small invitations to be gentle, to respond with empathy instead of advice. And that's the thing. Most people rush to fix what doesn't need fixing. They try to make pain disappear when all someone really needs is a witness. Older women, especially, have spent years being told to move on, to stay strong, to not make a scene. When you resist the urge to fix and instead simply hold space, you're saying, "You don't need to shrink here. You don't need to pretend." That's emotional attunement. It's a kind of emotional generosity. It's giving her your full attention without needing to be the hero. It's learning to tolerate silence, because silence is often where truth lives. It's letting her emotions breathe without trying to control them. And here's what's beautiful about it: when a woman feels that kind of presence, she relaxes. Her defenses soften. She no longer has to protect herself from being misunderstood. Emotional safety is the foundation of all attraction. Because when she feels understood, she starts to trust. And trust is what makes everything else possible. Emotional attunement also means being aware of your own emotions. You can't meet someone in their feelings if you're disconnected from your own. You can't offer calm if you're anxious, or compassion if you're defensive. Attunement requires emotional regulation. It asks you to be grounded enough to hold space for another person without being swept away. That balance is what creates stability. When you're emotionally attuned, you create a rhythm between you and her. A silent harmony where both people feel known. You learn when to speak, when to listen, and when to simply be still. You learn that connection isn't always built through grand gestures, but through small, consistent acts of understanding. The truth is, older women are drawn to men who can feel. Not the kind who drown in emotions, but the kind who respect them. The kind who see emotions not as weakness, but as wisdom, as data about what matters most. So pay attention. Slow down. Notice her moods, her energy, her silences. Listen not just with your ears, but with your heart. Because when a woman feels that you're attuned to her, not analyzing, not managing, but feeling with, something profound happens. She starts to trust you with her truth. And once she feels safe enough to share that truth, you're no longer just someone she talks to. You become someone she connects with. And that, in the end, is what every human being really wants. To be met, not managed. To be felt, not fixed. Purpose. It's a word that carries weight, but few truly understand its magnetic power. When you talk about connecting with someone, especially an older woman, purpose is far more compelling than charm, humor, or even confidence. Because she's lived long enough to see fleeting attractions, shallow flattery, and temporary attention. What endures, what draws her in, is the man who is anchored in something greater than himself. Purpose isn't about money, status, or appearances. It isn't about trying to impress or prove your worth. It's about living intentionally with direction and meaning. It's about waking up each morning with a clear sense of who you are, what matters to you, and how you want to show up in the world. There's a kind of energy in that, a quiet, unwavering momentum that older women recognize instantly. They can feel when someone's life has depth and when it's adrift. The truth is, purpose is magnetic because it signals integrity. When a man has a mission, even a small one, it shows that he values himself enough to take responsibility for his life. That responsibility radiates outward, creating a sense of stability and reliability that older women, who have often been through the turbulence of life, instinctively respect. Purpose says, I know who I am. I know what I want. I am not here to waste your time or mine. Purpose also makes vulnerability and emotional depth meaningful. Without direction, vulnerability can feel aimless or self-indulgent. But when it's paired with purpose, your openness becomes powerful. It shows that you are not only honest with yourself, but also committed to growing, evolving, and contributing. That combination of honesty and intentionality is rare, and it's magnetic. It's important to remember that purpose doesn't have to be monumental. It doesn't have to be saving the world or running a Fortune 500 company. Purpose can be as simple as cultivating your creativity, building meaningful relationships, mentoring others, or working passionately in your chosen field. The key is consistency. The key is the quiet, daily commitment to being someone who acts with intention rather than drifting through life reacting to circumstance. Older women sense this deeply because they've experienced people who drifted through life without direction. Men who were reactive, unreliable, and emotionally immature. Purpose distinguishes you from that. It communicates that your life has a foundation, a narrative that is coherent, and that you are capable of contributing to something bigger than yourself. That is profoundly attractive. When you have purpose, you also gain resilience. Challenges no longer shake you in the same way. Rejection, setbacks, and disappointments are viewed not as failures, but as part of a larger story, part of a journey you are committed to navigating. That resilience is appealing because it promises that if you encounter challenges together, you are capable of weathering them with integrity and emotional intelligence. In essence, purpose is not a tactic, it's a way of being. It's the silent, steady force that pulls people toward you. Older women are drawn to men whose lives are rich with meaning because it signals that connection with you will be more than a fleeting thrill. It will be engaging, substantial, and real. So if you want to attract, connect with, or build a lasting bond with someone who has lived deeply, focus on your purpose. Anchor yourself. Commit to living intentionally. Let your life speak through your actions, not just your words. When you stand firmly in who you are and what you stand for, you become irresistible. Not because you are trying, but because authenticity and purpose always draw people who are ready for something real. Here's the truth: you can't fake maturity, and you can't pretend emotional depth. If you want to connect with an older woman, or anyone who's grown wise through life, you have to become someone worth connecting to. So work on your confidence. Heal your insecurities. Learn to listen. Because when you stand in your truth, when you show up with respect and vulnerability, you won't need to chase attraction. You'll attract connection. And that, my friends, is far more powerful than seduction.